Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the World with Nate podcast. This podcast was created to shed light on some of the stories and lessons that we accrued during our time here. My hope is that those stories will bring us all together in this thing that we all call life. My hope for this podcast episode is that you find it both enlightening and enjoyable. So, sit back and relax. I want you to enjoy the ride. Special thanks to my friend Buck Kern of Hawkeye Storage and Consulting for helping me bring Season 2 of The World with Nate to YouTube. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2. Today's guest I have a huge history with. It was wild how we first met. When I got out of the military in 2015, I went to Kevin Dill's office, and he was the VA director for Black Hawk County at that time, and you helped me with separation. And now we're sitting here in Cedar Falls today, and we're going to speak about your life. It's really a full circle moment for me. So thank you for being here, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. I have a lot of admiration for the things you did while you were in office, the ways that you helped my life, and the things that you did for a boatload of veterans in the area while you were helping out with the VA. But before all that, you had mentioned prior to us on air that you grew up in the Black Hawk County area, that you grew up in Waterloo.
Yes.
What was childhood like here for you?
Well, yeah. So remember, I have Lewy body dementia, so sometimes my words and talking isn't. So just
we'll bear with that.
Yeah.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Well, I grew up in Evansdale.
Okay.
Which is
close in proximity.
Waterloo. I was born at Shoits Hospital in Waterloo. My father worked for John Deere, but he had a little siding company on the side. And I had 5 sisters, and we went to St. Nicholas Catholic Church. But my mother was, she spent most of the time at the Mental Health Institute in Independence.
Okay.
She was diagnosed a kind of a suicidal, homicidal, schizophrenic. And so I didn't see her much.
While you were growing up?
Yeah, except for when she was home from the hospital, and when she was, she tortured me. Me and my little sister, but mostly me, just tortured us. You know, sometimes people ask me, what was it like? Because this town of Evansdale knew.
Small community.
Yeah, that she had issues, and they would ask me, and I'd say, you know, if you ever watched the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, that's exactly what it was like in my home. The priest from St. Nick's would come and do exorcisms at the house.
You remember that as a child?
Mm-hmm. And she could move things without touching them. She would speak in different voices. She wouldn't allow me to sleep because she would always tell me she was supposed to kill me, but she couldn't kill me with my eyes open. So she would always tell me to go to sleep so she could stab me, but I would stay awake. And I never slept. And so I ran away a lot.
As a child?
Ran away to friends' houses, or I'd sleep out in the field. Next door, I'd sleep in the tree. I broke into St. Nicholas Church, and I would sleep in the church at night. And so I did that for 15 years until
you were just used to it as a kid?
Finally ran away when I was 15. The day I ran away for good, I had been gone, and I came home to get some clothes. I was staying at my friend's down the street, and I walked in the house, and she was lying in the middle of the living room floor, just laying there chanting. And as I came out of the bathroom, she rose up, and she just looked at me, and she pointed at this big glass ashtray and just went like this, and it rose up on its own, and she went like that with her finger, and it flung at me like 100 miles an hour, and I just ducked, and it put a hole in the wall, and I said, that's it. I've had enough of this. So I took off and never went back. My father was, he was an alcoholic bad. He was never home because he couldn't deal with it. And he had a lot of women on the side, so he was always staying there. So it was just myself, my little sister who would stay at other friends, and our mom. And so after she died, years later, people from the community, like our neighbors, reached out to me and apologized to me because they said, we should have taken you in because we knew the horrors you were going through, but we just didn't know what to do. So
that inaction is hard to hear.
Yeah, it was rough. The police would find me and bring me home, and then we ended up in court and told the judge I can't go back. She's possessed or doing, trying to kill me. And the judge said, you're a kid, you're going back with her. And it was rough.
Terrible upbringing.
Yeah, the social workers didn't help, and my family was into, parts of my family were into narcotics, and you had motorcycle gangs at the house, and people threatening my dad from drug cartels because some of my sisters chose the wrong path, and so
total chaos as a child.
Even guys would break into the house looking for drugs, and they'd put a knife to my throat and say, where's your sisters? And I'd be like, I don't know. In the meantime, I have my mother who's trying to kill me. So
right.
It was
a dad who's gone.
Yeah, and he used to come back from his drunken escapades, and he'd put a knife to my mom's throat because she was crazy, and then I'd, try to stop it, and he would, assault me, and then he would take off, and I wouldn't see him for days, and just left alone with that crazy woman until I finally just ran away.
And where'd you go?
I went.
You were young.
I went to a friend's house, and he said, do you want to go to my cousin's house out on Gilbertville Road? So I went there, and they had a big pool in the backyard, and so we went swimming. And it was a huge house. And later that night, I went back and snuck into the house, and I slept in a small room in the basement for a couple of days until their mom found me and said, what are you doing? And so I told her what was going on, and she said, you're staying here.
Very good.
So then I don't know if it was a week or two later that my dad found out where I was at, and he called. He was drunk, and he says, you know what, you can have him. And so I stayed there until I was 18 and joined the Marine Corps. Yeah, it was rough. When I was little, I would hide in the church, and I was an altar boy, and one of the priests at St. Nick's invited me to the parish and asked me if I wanted to tour the house, and so I did, and I was walking down the hallway upstairs of their house, and I saw a little boy naked in one room with the priest, and then he took me into his room, and he started to take my clothes off and try to fondle me, and I took off running, and I never went back.
Terrible.
Yeah, he's alive. He's in Dubuque. I reached out to the Archdiocese, and they asked me if I would leave it alone.
That's very hard to hear as someone who's practicing Catholic.
Yeah.
But I know that that's real stuff, and that stuff happens.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
I think it happened to a lot of us young boys in Evansdale. But so took a long time to get through that.
Everything, Kevin.
Sure.
It was a lot as a child, I'm sure.
Yeah, it used to Yeah, it was rough. So I made money by working for farmers in the fields, and used to walk from Gilbertville to Jessup every day
Wow.
in the summer to work in
Find
farmers'
work.
fields to make money.
Yeah. To just make it, to just get by.
So when I went into the Marine Corps and it was time for the 3-mile run, they were like, "You've been running."
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say this because it's boot camp, but I was like, "Brother, you have no idea.
Yeah, no clue.
I've been walking my whole life."
Yeah. Yeah.
So walking and running.
Yeah. So 18, Marine Corps. What gave you the push to go into the military with a upbringing like that?
Actually, I didn't want to. I wanted to go to college to be a lawyer to fight for kids like me, but I didn't have any money or any way to do that. And a teacher at East High,
That's where you were attending school?
Mr.
Okay.
Fitzgerald, said, "You're a smart kid when it comes to business law and law." And he, I think it was Beecher Law at that time, offered me a scholarship
Very cool.
for junior and senior year, but I had to get through freshman and sophomore, but I didn't have any way to get there. And so I was trying to figure out what to do, and my friend said, "I'm joining the Marine Corps," and I said, "No, thank you." And he said, "Will you go down to the recruiting office with me?"
Kevin, I know how this works out, dude.
I said, "No, I'm not going with you." He goes, "No, I just come sit there for a minute. I got to talk to my recruiter." So I was sitting there, and this recruiter, Staff Sergeant Ingersoll, he goes, "What's your plans?" I said, "Nope." So then he said, "Would you like to go on the buddy program?" I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, you fly out to San Diego with Sean, and you help him in process, and if you like it, you stay. If you don't like it, just come back. It's a free trip." And I'm like,
Sounds really great.
"Hey, that's pretty cool. I'll do that." Sean goes, "Yeah, come with me." And you just come back. So I got to boot camp, and I'm standing
Boot camp
there.
is in
San Diego.
San Diego, California.
I said, "I don't like this." So I told the guy there, as we got to recruit training, in that first night, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
They really
I'm sure even
mess you up.
In Marine Corps basic training at
Yep.
that period of time, it was way crazier than what I went through.
Because it's all the Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
And
Running the show.
Those guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, I'm going to go home." And he's like, "What?" I said, "I'm on the buddy program." "So?" "Well, they said I could just come with my friend Sean, and if I didn't like it, I could just fly back." No. So I was stuck there.
Got you.
So I met that recruiter in Quantico a couple years
Lord.
later.
Yeah.
And at Camp Lejeune. And I saw him, and I said, "Hey, you remember me?" And he goes, "Who?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah." I go, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Cuba." I go, "Why are you going to Cuba?" I got in trouble for lying to you guys all these years.
Someone
I said,
finally
"Good
caught
for
up.
you."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, went in the Marine Corps and didn't want to be there, but then I actually enjoyed it and wanted to stay forever. But
That first night, that's a shakeup, huh?
yeah, because you're looking out of the barracks window at San Diego and you're seeing the lights and you're seeing the city of San Diego and you're thinking, what am I doing? I
Yeah.
could
What am I doing?
be out there and enjoying, and I'm stuck in here, and it's like, I don't, and they're yelling at you, and you're standing there sometimes naked, sometimes just in your skivvies, and you're like, what? And then when you go into the bathroom for the first time, or the head, there's no doors.
Yep.
So you're just looking at the other guy across from you, and you're thinking, where am I?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was. But from the first day, they made me the squad leader for the first squad, and I was that all the way till graduation.
All right. So you
They
excelled
must have
there.
saw something
Yeah.
in me, because
At that time, I'm sure it was hard to see it in yourself.
Yeah, because I wasn't. I don't know if I was afraid of them because after what I went through with my mother, nothing scared me. It was a culture shock, but I adapted to the moment like I adapted at every place I stayed at as a kid. I just adapted at the moment I was at and just tried to survive.
Very strong sentiment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have
Yeah.
so far. When we talk about the Marine Corps, what was the job? Did you sign up for a job? Did they force you into a job?
Yeah, no, I went in open contract.
Okay.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't even want to go because I thought I was just going on this buddy program.
Right.
And if I'd just come home. So I didn't pick anything. I just went. And then I had no idea until the day we were graduating and the senior drill instructor called my name and said, "Hey, this is your job." I said, "What?" And he was even like, "Did you pick this?" No. So because my AVSAV scores were so high, they put me in accounting.
Okay. An accounting Marine, huh?
And so the drill instructors were kind of laughing at me because I was a pretty squared away guy, and they never pictured that, and neither did I. I said, I don't want to do that.
Right. It didn't strike your chord then.
No, I didn't. And so...
But I understand that. If your AVSVAP scores are high, like there's a couple things that you're probably going to get, intel or linguist or accounting or things like that. So you just got stuck where the military needed you.
And that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because I ended up at the Marine Corps Finance Center.
Okay. And where's that at?
In Kansas City at the time. It's an office building that's mostly civilians.
Okay.
It's the brainchild of Marine Corps Finance.
Okay.
It's not a base. It's just an office, and that's where I got put, where they put the smart Marines to do everybody's accounting, and I hated it.
Okay.
I hated it. I was a 19-year-old kid living in an apartment with two other Marines, going to a 9-to-5 job in an office building in a uniform, mostly civilians, working numbers, and I hated it. I mean, I hated it. And my officer in charge, he was a CW4, Chief Warrant Officer 4, Gunner Romero, was a Vietnam vet. Is it time to go?
No, we got plenty of time, Kevin.
He was a Vietnam vet. He pulled me aside after I'd been there a few months, and he said, "You don't like it here, do you?" I said, "Sir, no, sir." He goes, "Why did you pick this?" I told him the story.
Right.
And so he says, "What's your plans?" I said, "To be honest with you, sir, I'm going AWOL. I can't do this."
You were convinced that you were going to have to leave.
I was trying to figure out.
With your childhood, I'm surprised you didn't already go.
Because I can survive.
Yeah, wherever.
And he goes, "Don't do that." He goes, you're a pretty squared away guy. Mm-hmm. Why don't you let me help you?
It's a distinction in the military. When you say squared away, just for the civilians who are listening, I know exactly what you mean. But for people who aren't, it's the guys who are 15 minutes early to the job. It's the guys who aren't making the same mistakes twice. It's the guys that are trying their hardest every PT test despite it not mattering.
Yes.
It's the guy. So when we're talking
it's the
about
guys
squared
in
away,
the uniform that is spit
pressed,
and polished,
beautiful,
pressed, just like you look like you're a drill instructor, a drill sergeant on the drill
all
field.
the time.
All the time.
Because you have the pride.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we're talking about squared away.
I had this pride in the Marine Corps because I believed in its traditions from boot camp. I bought into that.
Hell yeah.
But I didn't understand, why did you put me in accounting behind a desk? This isn't what you led me to believe in boot camp.
The oorah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Let me help you." And I said, "Okay." And so I think it was the very next day, he said, "Do you want sea duty or embassy duty?" I said, "I don't know what that is." And he goes, "Well, sea duty, you're on a ship with sailors, and you're the guard, that you protect the ship and the sailors. And embassy duty is you protect embassies around the world." And I said, "What do you think?" And he had told me at one time he had been on sea duty and he enjoyed it. I said, "I don't know, because I don't know if I'm seasick or not."
You never experienced it.
Yeah. I said, "I don't know." I go, I'll try embassy duty. And so he made a phone call, and within, I think, a week, I was gone
Wow.
to Quantico.
So he had, him being in his position, I'm sure he had a network of people.
Yeah, I didn't even have to meet in front. Usually you have to meet in front
Board.
of a traveling board.
Yep.
I didn't have to. I had orders PCS to Quantico, and I was in Quantico to embassy school, which is one of the, besides recon training.
Quantico is in where?
Virginia.
Virginia. Okay.
It's where the officer candidate school is.
For the Marine Corps.
For the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And so I was at embassy school where the attrition rate was 70%. You know, 10 people show up, 7 guys are leaving. Just like, you know, they say it's just as hard as recon training, special forces kind of thing.
And why is that?
It's, you learn, we have to be smart because you're dealing with diplomats.
Yep. High value people.
High valued people. Plus you learn tactics,
To defend
weapons
those
training
people.
to defend those people. Sometimes you're all alone, which you might hear a story if we get there where you're all alone at the embassy and you come under attack. You're in charge as a little corporal
Yep. With
of
19,
protecting
20.
the nation's interest in that country. And that happened to me. And so it was hard. So a lot of guys don't make it because they're just very immature.
It has to be the top.
Yeah, it's the top.
The top of the top.
Yeah, and I even got recognized later on as one of the top 30 Marines in the entire Marine Corps with embassy duty.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
It was just, I don't know, I just adapted well to that environment. So then I was in embassy school in Quantico. And
Because you had a great mentor who helped you out.
yeah,
and
if it
sent
wasn't
you on
for
your way.
him, I'd be at Fort Leavenworth. For
Because you
going
went AWOL. Yeah. Or you'd be a E8 or a E9 accounting
Oh my god!
in the Marine Corps.
And I'd be 500
Ate
pounds,
up. Yeah,
smoking, heart disease, alcoholic.
Yeah,
Holy
that's right.
crap.
There's probably some truth to that.
Well, it's funny. God brings people into. God has a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and He brings people into your life that gets you on that plan because you veered from the right or to the left, and He's got to bring people in your life that say, "Hey, you got off the track here. Let's get you back on the right road." So that's what He did for me.
Hell yeah.
After embassy school, I excelled. So they sent me to Washington, D.C. to learn Arabic.
Oh, wow. The
I was
hot
the
spot.
Only one to ever do that
Okay.
from embassy school.
And at that point in time, that probably wasn't a language that, I mean, it was the 90s?
This was the 80s after the Beirut bombing.
Okay.
So my orders were to Beirut. And then as I was getting ready to go to Beirut, the threat level in Cairo, Egypt was higher now than Beirut, so they sent me to Cairo.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was good duty. In Cairo, we came under attack by terrorists, by civil unrest, took a lot of indirect fire, direct fire. I almost got kidnapped by terrorists one night.
I bet it was just nuts.
It was nuts. It was during the PLO with Yasser Arafat, and he was sending teams over to kidnap a Marine or to kill Americans or overthrow the embassy. And one night we came under attack, and I was there alone, and I ran the show, and you grow up real fast. So
We're talking 19, 20-year-old kid.
yeah. And then from Cairo, I went to Honduras during Iran-Contra.
Wow.
So met Oliver North.
Get out of town.
Yeah, he probably would dispute that, but he was there, and
He was there while you were there.
saw a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the land of the CIA and mercenaries and Iran-Contra, and that was the Salvadorian death squads, and we dealt with that, and that was rough. So from Egypt to Honduras, and then I went to Russia during communism, and during those times I was assigned to George
Wow.
Herbert Walker Bush. I was pretty good at my job. Got assigned to him.
And the number of Marines that are doing that detail is so small, and you saying the things you're involved with, those are national security events that I've read about.
Yeah, there was quite a few that we were involved in that were things people read about at home that I got to see up close and personal firsthand. I used to guard Bush's briefcase at night, holding the nation's highest secrets. And I had a top secret SCI clearance, and saw a lot of things and heard a lot of things. And when I left Moscow, I had to sign a piece of paper that, because I saw something there that I wasn't supposed to, and I had to sign a paper that for 70 years I would never disclose what I saw. So,
right.
Or else I go to Leavenworth.
And that's not something we're trying to do. Something that won't even push you on it, Kevin.
Then after Moscow, they sent me to the Defense Language Institute, where I became fluent in Iraqi and Arabic. And then during the Gulf War, it was nothing special. I sat in a little skiff and listened and translated what the Iraqis were doing. That's
Very
all I
important
did.
duty.
That was all I did. So, and then I got medically retired.
What was the reason for your medical retirement?
Well, it turns out.
How long did you serve?
Well, it was 11 years, and then I spent 3 years on the disability retirement list. Okay. And then I was officially done in 94. So 83 to 94. And I was having some medical condition that they thought was related to all my deployments. And I was at Walter Reed for a couple of months, and the colonel came in and said, hey, you have two choices. You can have a permanent profile where no PT, you'll never get promoted, you'll never get deployed, and you'll sit behind a desk for the rest of your career.
Somewhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or we can medically retire you. And I thought, well, I don't want to just sit, so I'll take the medical retirement. But it turns out all these years later that I was actually the precursor to Lewy body dementia that they didn't know.
What you're facing now.
Mm-hmm.
All the way back then.
Yeah. Which is a story, a message that I try to get out to all veterans is for years they thought it was my PTSD.
Causing the issues that
for
you were
the
having.
Unknown that they couldn't put their finger on medical issues, whether it was the weakness of my body or the stomach issues I was having, that they thought, well, that's from the Middle East. The stomach, the weakness is maybe some virus you picked up on your deployments.
Yeah, Honduras.
Or it's the PTSD. And no, it was actually my brain malfunctioning, saying, hey, you're developing a dementia-related disease. But no doctors could see
that up.
And so now I try to tell veterans, hey, pay attention when they're telling you, oh, it's your PTSD. Because I didn't have a traumatic brain injury from an explosion, but for some of those guys, that rattled their brain.
Yep.
And the doctors are saying, I don't know why your stomach hurts. I don't know why you have this weird weakness. I don't know why. Let's just say it's your PTSD or Gulf War syndrome.
Yep.
Or from the burn pits.
Yeah, the burn pits.
Or from the water at Lejeune that I drank. So just be careful and really push your doctor. No, let's check the brain more intently. And so that's kind of a message I'm trying to give now.
Yeah, all these years later. So the medical retirement, as someone who you had stated you thought maybe it would be a career for you, what was that like when you got that news?
That was hard because for a moment I almost chose the permanent profile because I liked the structure of the military. I excelled in that structure, but I knew, knowing me, I would begin to hate the military, just sitting there, back in the accounting job. Just
Wouldn't
sitting
fill
there,
your cup.
being, being eventually an E6 over 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, people would laugh at you. Nobody would take you seriously.
Right.
The other guys, they wouldn't respect you. You know,
You saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And so I thought, no, I'll cash out now and we'll go find something else to do.
Heck yeah. And that, so what was your last duty station, or where did you come from? Where did you retire?
I came from Vint Hill Farms, Virginia.
Okay.
Vint Hill Farms is no longer there. Vint Hill Farms is a place where NSA, CIA, military intel were together.
Okay.
They called it the farm.
All right.
Not the farm you see on TV like Jason Bourne,
Okay.
but the same concept.
Yeah.
But the farm for the CIA is the farm for the CIA. The farm where I was at was CIA, NSA, and military together.
Yeah.
So it was just and it looked like a farm. It was, you rode out through Virginia across these white picket fences where there were horses and animals, and you're going, and you're like, where are we going? And you end up, and then it looked like a farm. I'm like, what is? So.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Do you look back at that time and think about, wow, I was really involved in some things that
I had
determine
job
history.
offers. I had job offers from CIA, FBI.
Even with the top secret security clearance, you can get
Yeah.
really good paying jobs.
When I was in Vienna guarding the Attorney General, the head of the FBI hostage rescue team asked me, hey, what are your plans? When you get out of the Marine Corps, why don't you come join the FBI? And I said, I don't have a college degree. And he said, don't worry about it. we would
Figure it out.
because you're good at what you do. And then I had offers from, when I got back from Moscow, a guy from the CIA met me there and said, we want to hire you, but you need to get out of the Marine Corps now and come with us tomorrow. And I'm like, I just got here. And he said, this was 1988 at the height of the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, what would I do? He says, all I can tell you is you'll be leaving to Afghanistan, and we'll fill you in from there. And here's the unclassified salary, and then we'll tell you the classified salary when you sign the dotted line. And he goes, and I have $10,000 cash as a bonus if you sign up right now, but you're leaving for Afghanistan in a couple days. I said, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I would have done it. I told him, I said, can I go home? I haven't been home in 3 years because I've been deployed.
Yeah.
Can I just go home first? He goes, no. I go, just let me go home for a couple of weeks and then I'll go.
Yeah.
He goes, no, you need to leave now.
Immediately.
And I said, no. And so,
Stuck to your guns.
yeah.
Well, paid off.
In 2002, I was offered a job with the CIA again, but then Tammy's dad got Alzheimer's, so we stayed here.
So you accepted it. What brought you here was you accepted a position with the VA.
No, I was a police officer.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, after the service, we didn't know what to do. I had my little retirement pay, which wasn't much back then.
Right.
I think it was $700 a month.
Can't live off that, right?
And so some friends of ours said, because I was stationed at an Air Force base once, Goodfellow in San Angelo.
Okay, yeah.
And they said, hey, San Angelo's hiring police officers. And so Tammy didn't want to live overseas, so I didn't take any of the government jobs that were offered me.
Yeah.
And so we went there, and I was a cop in San Angelo, Texas. And then after almost 5 years, Tammy wanted to come home here.
Yeah.
So I transferred to the Waterloo PD.
Gotcha. I did not know that, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mostly worked narcotics. And then...
What was your experience in the police force? Did you enjoy that?
oh, I love being
That's
a
pretty
cop.
high speed, right?
I love being a cop. The adrenaline, the camaraderie.
A lot of things you were probably missing from
Yeah.
the military.
And I liked working narcotics. I was really good at it. But then I had kids and wasn't home much. And
While you were raising the kids?
yeah, we were working 12, 13 hours a day, and my mind was so focused on narcotics that I took a moment and said, growing up without really any parents, what am I doing? So I left that and just took a regular job so I could be home with the kids. So
Is that tough?
Yeah, it was hard because it was such a slowed pace.
compared to what you were used to.
Yeah, but it was good to be a father. A lot of the guys I worked with who are retiring now, they kind of envied me because in policing's changed so much. But
Right.
yep, and then I ended up at the VA
For Blackhawk County.
in St. Louis.
Oh, dang. I didn't know about that either.
I worked for the federal VA.
Yeah, there's a huge VA down there. Well, I was at Scott Air Force Base, which is close
Scott.
to
Yeah,
there. So
yeah. We used to go there
yeah.
and
sure.
go to the commissary,
Yeah.
the PX at Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a big base with
Yeah.
Transcom, and headquarters for Air Material Command is located there. So,
yeah. We used to go there. we
so
were in-
what sort of things were you doing in St. Louis with the VA?
I was on their law enforcement team.
Okay.
It was fine. It was boring, but it was fine. And then I wanted to get my master's degree to move up in that field. And so I went to St. Louis University on my off time. And then it was getting difficult with the schedule we kept. So I transferred out of that department into the regional office that adjudicated benefits for veterans. So that's where I started to get my expertise.
Yeah.
And then Dillard sent Tammy home here, and I needed something to do, and went down to the Blackhawk County VA office, and I didn't like the way I was treated.
Because you're a veteran
Yeah.
and those services
I
are.
thought, this can't be how it is. And the guy was retiring. And so I wasn't sure. And I saw in the paper that there was an opening. He was retiring. And I thought, I don't know if I want to do this. And I didn't do it. Well, then I saw an ad that they didn't like any of the applicants, so they reopened it. And I thought, okay, God, are you trying to tell me something?
Yeah.
So
I
then
don't believe in coincidence.
Then I applied and got hired. And
I mean, with your body of work, it was an automatic shoo-in.
yeah,
For
I
real.
don't.
You don't have to say that. I'll say it for you, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't. I mean, I've left a lot of stuff out, but
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, we could talk for hours, but then.
What was your responsibility as Blackhawk VA?
The main task of that job was to educate and inform and assist veterans on getting the benefits that they're entitled to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my job. And so my first day, I remember sitting in the office quietly. I always got in there early. The office opened at 8, but I would get there about 6:30. Yeah, and I would pray. And I remember the first day I said, okay, God, this is the vision I see, because Blackhawk County had a bad reputation, probably one of the worst in the state. And I said, I need you to surround me with people with a servant's heart.
Very good.
And I want to create a place where veterans can come, whether they need food or clothing or rides to the doctor or a place they can come and just sit and feel comfortable, because we haven't had that. And I want to create a world where people, if they want to donate, they can donate, so we have even more resources. So that was the first thing on my first day, sitting there alone. And then things started happening where
It was lacking when you got to the office,
it was bad.
when you took office.
Veterans weren't coming down there. There was such a need and a lack. And then there were so many benefits that veterans were entitled to that weren't getting because they just didn't know. And now when I look back and I think about all the veterans who have passed on and their widows who were entitled to a benefit who didn't get it,
Yeah.
because the people that oversaw that office they just didn't care. They just didn't care.
Got left behind.
You know, it's a good job. You get paid a good salary. There's no oversight. You don't have a boss. you can do what you want, and people took advantage of it.
Right.
So they took advantage of our veterans, and that upset me. So we're going to change it.
Hell yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah. So I came into the office in 2015, and Iowa doesn't have a big military presence. We don't have a base or a post or installation here. So coming here as an active duty military, when you're used to, well, there's an office to go to ask those questions, or there's this person. Coming here, I felt alone, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. And when I got to your office, I was lost. But I didn't leave your office lost, Kevin. You took care of me, man. I had no idea, and I remember the conversations, and you pushed school, and you pushed making sure that I had all my medical paperwork to file what I needed to for my disability. And it was the best advice I ever got, Kevin.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the hell out of it because it set me up. But I need you to know that I have helped so many of my buddies since then with things that you have helped me with.
And that's what's cool about it is now I hear stories of other veterans who are helping their buddies, because that's really how I got started. When I was at the VA in St. Louis in the law enforcement sector, a veteran came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm applying for a disability benefit. You seem pretty smart. Will you help me?" I said, "Sure." And so we worked the process just from things I read, and he got a benefit. And I thought,
hell yeah.
This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I started reading and reading and reading and reading. And then eventually when the opportunity came to transfer to that area of the VA, I ate that up. And,
yeah.
And then I wanted to do it more, and so when the opportunity with the VA came up, it's funny, I don't know why I decided not to do it, and then God said, "You're doing this." I'm glad he did, because, growing up, not having anything and wondering what you're going to eat or drink, not because we didn't have money, but because my father was lost.
Yeah.
And my mother was
absent.
So I didn't know how to access that. And so I just adapted and figured it out on my own. And I started to think about all the veterans out there that there's access. They just didn't know how to get it. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to show them how to get it.
Hell yeah.
And I was going to do everything for them to get it. And so I read a lot of law books on how to fight the VA.
Yeah.
And
because it is a system, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
And to be fair, there's individuals that take advantage of that system as well. They do. And it's hard because who's to say what's right and wrong? All we can do is try, right?
But as an advocate, even though I knew they were trying to take advantage, it's not my call.
Right.
That's the VA's call.
100%.
And if they don't do their due diligence to figure it out, that's on them.
Not you.
It's not on the veteran.
Right.
Even though you wonder what they learned from the military.
Yeah.
Because we have our intestinal fortitude and our integrity.
Mm-hmm.
But that's their issue.
That's on them.
Even though I try to talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Hey.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think you were really a Navy SEAL, so stop saying that.
Right.
Can't find any evidence of that.
Right.
So stop
you didn't even
saying
serve in the
it.
Navy, for Christ's sake.
So I actually had to have that conversation with a gentleman who had been passing himself off as a Navy SEAL, and everybody in the military community even believed it. And I had to finally sit him down in my office quietly and say, "Listen,
this is a big deal.
I'm not going to disclose who you are, but you have to stop or I will."
Yeah.
Stop. And so, because he was getting notoriety.
Notoriety.
For being a Navy SEAL,
yeah.
And he wasn't.
Right.
Anyway,
stolen valor. Can't do that. 100%.
So anyway, the
hard things that came with that job as well.
Yeah, I worked a lot of hours, and because I had such a passion, people don't know this. I never talked about it, but Tammy will tell you, I got calls in the middle of the night from doctors, nurses, not just from military hospitals, but regular hospitals. I got a veteran in the ER. We don't know what to do. He has no insurance. We don't know what to do. He's sick. but we don't know what to do. Doctors would call me. I have a veteran who's sick. I kind of think it's this, but he says he's Vietnam. What direction should I go? And I would talk to him about Agent Orange.
Just because of your experience and all the things you had dealt with.
I got calls from nurses from the VA and outside hospitals calling me at 9 o'clock at night in the middle of a blizzard and say, hey, I have a patient who happens to be a veteran who's diabetic. He hasn't eaten. Will you please go to McDonald's and get him some food? And I would go out there, my own dime, and go out to North Cedar Falls and try to make it out there and drag through drifts of snow to get him his food. And but we need to do that.
You needed to do that.
We need to do that. I don't know if we have that today.
Servant's heart.
And I told my staff, I would tell them, listen, if you don't have a servant's heart, you just can't work here. There's no dig against you. I can't have you here.
Hell yeah.
You have to have a servant's heart because, these men and women, they deserve it, even though there's some questions sometimes on how much they deserve it.
Yeah.
Still, we don't judge.
Hell yeah.
We just give that to them, and hopefully they'll see something in us that says, okay, I need to stop with the charades and get my life in order and quit coming down there and saying, I'm a veteran, give me a free meal.
Yeah.
And now they come down and say, hey, will you help me find a job?
Hell yeah.
Will you help me get my life back in order so I'm not on this crutch of I'm a veteran, I'm entitled.
Yeah.
And so.
Hell yeah.
Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. That's okay. You still pray for them.
Hell yeah. Yep. You do the best you can.
Yeah. And you still fight for them. And fight with the VA and fight with
try to win those battles.
Congressmen and senators and sure. Yeah, I think it's what I would like to think that when we do those things, it puts a smile on, God smiling and saying, well done, my child.
Yep.
That's what I wanted. That servant's heart, that unconditional, the good Samaritan.
Absolutely, Kevin.
Be that, and I'll take care of the rest. Just be that. So,
absolutely.
I think we miss out on that. That's all he's trying to say is be the good Samaritan, and I'll take care of the rest. But make sure you glorify me in what you do, because I'm not going to share my glory with any man. This is your purpose. I'll take care of the rest. So that's what we're trying to do now with Lewy body dementia, because like veterans, people with dementia-related diseases are alone.
Yep.
And your friends tend to leave. People around you tend to go, and you're just sitting there because people I don't know how to act around you. You have Alzheimer's or dementia. So they go, and sometimes with veterans with PTSD that have issues, people around them disappear. Non-veterans disappear. Not veterans, but non-veterans disappear out of their lives because they don't understand it. Their wives leave them because they don't understand it. Or for a woman, their spouse leaves them because they don't understand it. And it's the same with dementia-related diseases. We haven't talked about enough that people don't understand it, and people tend to leave out of your life. So now with Lewy body dementia, just trying to spread that message that, hey, we still matter. Veterans still matter. So we're just trying to do that.
You received that diagnosis while you were
the VA director.
The VA director.
Yeah, I.
Did you know what that meant when they talked to you about it?
No, I was starting to have troubles at work.
What sort of troubles?
Just forgetting things and not understanding how to do the complex things I was doing before. I mean, I was working on the hardest cases. Even the VA would call me, the federal VA. Hey, what do you think of this? Or We just hired a guy at the VA hospital in Iowa City. Can you be his mentor? I was working on those things.
And a lot of different things.
Oh, lots of different things. Even, Senator Ernst's staff would call me every day. Hey, we have a veteran in Western Iowa. Will you help him?
Yeah.
And, because nobody else would. And I would get so angry at all these other counties. But anyway, I was struggling with just complex things at work. The ladies in the office, the staff were noticing my personality changes and just tired and forgetting how to get home, forgetting how to even drive, what a truck was. How do I operate this thing? And they were like, so they called Tammy and something's wrong with Kevin. We didn't do anything until the hallucinations started.
Okay.
And then I realized, okay, this isn't, I'm not tired. This is, something's wrong. So then we went to the doctor.
So when you say you forgot how to use your truck, you just are absent-minded? You can't remember how to get in, how to start it?
Yeah. It was not so much absent-minded. It was my mind was actually looking at this thing I'm sitting in, and I have no idea what it is. Not a clue.
Yeah.
I don't understand driving. And so I would just sit there until Stacy or Michelle,
The lady she worked with?
would walk over and go,
Kevin.
"What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I'd be like, "I don't know how to get home." And they're like,
Didn't know how to respond, I'm sure.
"Hey, what are we supposed to do?" So they would just drive me home.
Do you remember that first time of that happening and trying to relay that to Tammy? You said her father dealt with dementia, right?
Yeah, he had Alzheimer's.
Or Alzheimer's, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How is that different from what you're dealing with?
Alzheimer's is a steady decline in the brain. It's just Lewy body dementia is up and down. So Lewy body dementia, there's these things going off in your brain, hitting different parts of your brain. And that one time might affect your cognitive, and one day it might be my memory.
Okay.
One day it might be my speech. One day I might be perfectly normal. And it goes up and down until eventually it becomes like Alzheimer's, and it just shuts off. Lewy body dementia is more progressive than Alzheimer's, and it's more costly on the patient. It's more taxing on the caregiver because it is such an up and down.
Right.
Lewy body dementia causes weird dream activity where you act them out while you're sleeping.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it's dangerous. My dreams are real to me, like real. You can tell me, "No, Kevin, you just had a dream," but I don't believe you.
You'll think
it's
it really.
real. And it'll be real until it just kind of finally goes away. But to me, it's still real. It still happened. And so it's confusing. And I understand now why Robin Williams, the actor who had Lewy body dementia,
he was diagnosed,
took his life.
Yeah.
I understand that now because it's psychotic, it's psychosis, it's delusional. It does things that Alzheimer's doesn't do.
Do you wonder if your mom dealt with this? Is it hereditary at all?
I don't know if it's. I don't think Lewy body dementia is a hereditary thing.
I don't know. I'm ignorant to that.
But I don't think my mother had. So what happened to my mother was she was perfectly normal, but she was. I think it sounds like she was suffering from postpartum depression. And she went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist repeatedly raped her in the office.
Oh, man.
Repeatedly, violently, for a long time. And that caused her to have a psychotic breakdown. And instead of working on that, they locked her up at MHI and filled her up with more medication. When she died, she was on 63 different psychotic drugs.
Holy cow.
They messed her up. and they protected that doctor. His name was Dr. Stone. He got kicked out of Iowa, but not until years later.
It is wild that some of those things come to light.
So they think that my mother tortured me because I was the only male in the house
In those memories.
for all those years. Yeah.
I'm sorry to rehash those
Well,
things.
it's okay. I mean,
I appreciate
my
your
faith is
authenticity.
strong, and God has worked me through it. So,
Hopefully other people can hear that message.
yeah, it's funny not funny, but things happen, and we don't know why. But God always works things out for good for those who love Him and are called according for His purpose. And so, if you trust, if you could just take some people, what? I always say, look, I used to, when I was over in Kuwait, we had this guy from India who was Muslim, and he said to me one day, he goes, why are you always, Mr. Kevin, why are you always happy? And I thought, well, this is a nice moment. And he said, because, some of the other people are just mean to me, but you're always nice. And I said, I think it's because I have Jesus in my heart. And he's like, tell me about this. And so we talked a couple of days, and I finally said to him, look, do me a favor. He says, okay, Mr. Kevin. I said, I just want you to, tonight when you're on night shift, I want you to go over in the corner, and instead of praying to Allah, I just want you to take a moment and say, hey, I've been talking about Mr. Kevin with Jesus. I'm curious. I want to know who you are. Reveal yourself to me. I just want to know who you are. And I said, if you do that with a genuine heart, that you want to know who this Jesus is, I promise you He'll reveal Himself to you. And so he did that. And I always wonder where he's at today. But I don't know why we got on this subject. I can't
Maybe
remember.
he'll catch it on listening.
Yeah,
Kevin.
maybe
Who knows? Maybe he's still around.
So
I do have listeners in 40-some different countries.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me personally, I think that how I got through my
What's your
childhood,
faith?
because one day when I was younger, my mother had come into the room, and she was one of the worst nights I can remember. And it was one of the nights I got really scared, and I ran past her, and I ran into my parents' bedroom where my dad was actually at, but he was passed out drunk. And I got on the bed and tried to wake him because I was really scared, but he wouldn't wake up. And I was at the end of the bed, and here she come. And she got into the bed and laid there, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And I covered myself up and just laid there, and then I felt something. That's a true story. And I looked up under the blanket, and I saw 3 beings, which I know now are angels. There was 2 at the end of the bed and 1 over here. And I know this so clear I could draw it, everything about it. And they just sat there. And at first I got really scared, and then I looked back up, and they were still there. And then I felt this peace like I never felt. And I got up out of the bed, and I went back to my room, and from that moment until the moment my mother threw the big ashtray at me, from that moment, which would be almost, I want to say it was probably 4 or 5 years, my mother would come to the room like she used to. And instead of being able to come in the room and put a knife to my throat, she would get right to the door of my room, and she would stop.
Wow.
Like there was something guarding the door. I couldn't see it, but she would stop, and she would look fearful, and she would just stand there, and she couldn't get past. And from that moment on, I felt safe. And it was like, I'm God, and I've got you. There's a verse in Isaiah that I always follow. It's Isaiah 41:13 that says, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." And so my faith is so deep that nothing can face it. Nothing, because of that moment.
Yeah. Solidified it for you.
Yeah, and so I just tell people, look, if you've never went down that road of truly trusting God, just what can you lose?
Yeah, what can you lose?
Just a few minutes
Try
out of
it.
your day you're losing by just having a moment with him and saying, okay, I've heard this Kevin guy talk and other people talk. Now it's my turn. I'm hurting and I'm struggling and I don't know which way to go. And so I'm looking to you. Reveal yourself to me. Help me. Help my unbelief, which is, a verse in the Bible. Help my unbelief.
Absolutely.
And he'll reveal himself to you. And, maybe if you hear this and you find me in a year, actually when I was a police officer, we arrested this girl for narcotics. Her boyfriend was cooking meth and she was helping. And the other guys took him away and then I took her in my car. And she was in the back of my car and we're driving. I said, what got you into cooking meth? And she said, well, I used to be a good girl and I ran into him and I've lost my way and blah, 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 da, 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 da. And so I ministered to her. And just like you and I are talking is how we talked. And about a year later, the sheriff, Blackhawk County, called me in the middle of the night. And he woke me up, and he's like, hey, Kevin, I don't mean to wake you up, but we've been getting calls from this girl from Florida just begging to talk to you. I go, what's her name? And I'm like, I don't know who that is. I go, okay, give me her number. So I called her, and she's like, I go, who are you? And she said, remember the girl you arrested, and I was in the back seat, the meth girl? And she goes, I just want you to know I gave my life to God and to Christ, and I'm living in Florida. I got my child back. I got a job. I got my own house, and
proof's in the pudding, Kevin.
God is good.
Hell yeah.
So,
hell yeah. The only last thing I need to ask of you is for people out there who might not understand Lewy body dementia.
Sure.
How would you, where can they go to be more educated?
Sorry, we got off on all these things.
No.
Lewy body, and that's the problem with dementia-related diseases, is once you're diagnosed, the doctor doesn't really have anything to tell you, just gives you the medicine and says, see you in a year. And then you're like, well, where do we go?
What do we do? How do we
It's kind of like with veterans, where do we go? And so you have the Alzheimer's Association, the Lewy Body Dementia Association, and they're trying, but that's more about research. And now we've kind of started this dementia-friendly Iowa that is helping.
And that is something that you are actively a part of.
Actively a part of.
As much as you can be.
Today we were in a meeting with the Western Home about building a dementia treatment center here in the Cedar Valley.
Hell yeah.
But I would say to someone who got diagnosed, if you're here in Iowa, reach out to Dementia Friendly Iowa, which you can Google that, and you'll get Megan Zimmerman, and she will help you like she helped us. Or you can reach out to me, and Tammy will help you find where you need to go until we can educate the community and the medical staff that after diagnosis, the next step should be, let's talk about quality of life.
Yeah.
Because we recently went to palliative care after 3 years of the diagnosis, and they said, okay, let's talk about quality of life. And I said, this is dumb. Why didn't we do this 3 years ago?
Yeah.
So now that's the message we're trying to spread, that after the diagnosis, you meet right with a staff that says, okay, currently there's no cure. So how do we improve your quality of life so you don't take the ultimate sacrifice like Robin Williams? And even to veterans, with the veterans who commit suicide.
It's an epidemic.
Why have we not developed a better plan when you leave the service of, okay, let's talk about quality of life. Let's get you on the right path. We don't do a really good job when we don't do that with dementia patients. So I don't know if this was boring.
You did so good, Kevin.
I don't know.
Thank you so much.
My mind goes and I try to focus, and then I get tired, and then things pop up, and I just start talking. And
you did amazing.
So
you did amazing. You did amazing. You're trying to do what you can to raise awareness about this and change for future people who have the diagnosis.
Yeah, I would just encourage the people out there in this world that's listening. I felt God tell me, look, I'm taking your brain, but I'm enlarging your heart.
Hell yeah.
So you can think and feel and speak with your heart. And that's what I'm going to help you with and encourage others to follow that same path, to get involved in their community, to get involved in those things that you're passionate about when you wake up. Am I passionate about feeding the poor? Okay, let's go do that. Am I passionate about veterans? Let's go do that. Am I passionate about people with dementia? Let's go do that. Am I passionate about the people in jail that needs someone to hear a message of good? Okay, let's go do that. If you do that with the right motive and intent, not to bring glory on yourself, but to help others, listen, God will take care of the rest.
Hell yeah.
God will take care of the rest.
Hell yeah.
Stop worrying about it. Stop stressing over it. Be wise, right? Be wise. But God will take care of it. So He's a big God. So anyway, that's just my opinion that you can take. Before you could say a quarter, but now it's $6 and go to Scooters and get some coffee.
Or a crumble cookie, right?
Yeah.
Before you get out of here, we got to go to the firing range. Are you ready for the This or That?
Okay.
Heck yeah. This episode of This or That has been sponsored by Rachel's Rosaries. They are custom-made rosaries to be used for gifts during Christmas, baptism, confirmations, birthdays, or just to remind someone that you care about them and you're praying for their strength. That's why I got this rosary made for you, Kevin. It's in red, white, and blue, our favorite colors.
Yes, sir.
And I want to give that as a gift to you.
Thank you.
And I hope that when you look at it, you think of strength and me praying for you, dude.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So the first question is, would you rather learn something new or master a task that you already have? It can be anything, whichever you pick. Learn something new or master something that you know.
I think I'd rather master something that I know.
A new mansion or your dream car?
Oh.
I know these are tough. Stuff that you probably haven't thought about in a while.
Probably a dream mansion.
Okay. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Oh, dark chocolate.
That was easy for you.
Yeah.
Would you rather talk with the animals or be bilingual? Would you rather talk any language you want or talk to animals?
Well, it's funny. I don't know how much time you have, but today there was we were at my foster mom's, and she has a small dog, and he was old, and he was doing something weird. And she said the doctors think he's got some kind of a brain thing. And I thought, do dogs get Alzheimer's and dementia? So at that moment, I wanted to be able to talk to little Charlie the dog and say, tell me what you're experiencing and maybe I can help you.
Through it. Hell yeah. So you're talking with animals.
Yeah.
Would you rather be with cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Hot.
Golf or cookies?
Golf.
Private island or a thriving community?
Oh, a thriving community.
Oh, yeah. A small town or the big city?
That's tough because I like the quietness of a small town, but I think God called us to the big city.
Hell yeah. And the last one for you today, Kevin. Impact, outcome, or your legacy?
Oh, impact.
Hell yeah.
But it's funny. Impact that leads to outcome. I don't care about my legacy.
Servant's heart, Kevin.
I just hope one day they can say, yeah, I remember that Kevin Dill. I saw Jesus in him. That's all.
Yeah. That's all the time we have for today, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself, brother.
Yes,
Hell
sir.
yeah.
Thank you.
Special thanks to my friend Katie Hine at Mattress by Appointment, Cedar Falls, for her sponsorship of Season 2 of The World with Nate.